out of Texas A&M University in America, they found that vegans and vegetarians were having higher rates of kids with autism, and that is in the literature as well, as higher rates of autism in vegan and vegetarian families that eat less meat or no meat. And Texas A&M found that one of those seemed to be causative because of a carnitine deficiency. And so people that don't have enough carnitine, their brains don't develop properly, their neurons can't develop properly. And this is important for mitochondrial function and health as well. And so they found that it is the case that carnitine is actually an essential nutrient for a lot of people. Fully 30% of people don't make enough carnitine or any carnitine at all. And so it's non-essential. It doesn't matter. Bullshit. It matters for at least 30% of people, and more in your diet is helpful as well. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining my live for, what is this? Friday, the 23rd of February. Or Thursday, the 22nd of February, depending on what part of the world you're in. So thank you all very much. It's nice to see everybody. Okay, so so we'll get started with some questions. First is from Albino Rhino. Is there anything wrong with eating smoked meat on the carnivore diet, pellet smoker, charcoal, etc.? Certainly, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it occasionally. And probably not even all that much wrong with doing it more often than that. You know, we've been cooking with fire for at least 800,000 years, possibly more, probably more, because there's evidence of people who are using ovens 800,000 years ago, and so we're going to get a lot of smoke in our food. Now, is that the same as having something in a smoker? No, it's not. But I don't think there's a problem with, sort of cooking and having that sort of open fire sort of cook. So I don't think that there's much of an issue having smoked meats, at least, on an occasion. And I still think it's better than any of the alternatives. Probably best not to make it the only thing that you eat, just because you don't want to build up of these different sorts of products. But, the issues with cooked meat anyway, or the little burnt particulates, the studies looking at that were pretty weak, and so I don't know if we can really go off much of those as well. But I wouldn't make it as a mainstay, but every now and then I'd say it's fine. Bruce Lynch, thank you for the super chat. Is MCT oil okay and healthy on carnivore? Also, does any animal fats cross the blood-brain barrier? If so, how does that work? Been on carnivore a month. So as far as MCT oil, that's generally derived from coconut oil. And I don't think there's necessarily, I don't know of any problem specifically with MCT oil. If you're getting it from coconut oil, it may have the plant sterols, which are the plant's cholesterol, which mimic our cholesterol. They're close enough to our cholesterol that our body stops making enough of our own cholesterol, and then we don't have enough substrate for our hormones, for vitamin D, for our cell membranes, for bile, for our brains, things like that. Potentially brains, it's thought that cholesterol doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, so the brain makes its own cholesterol. Now, the brain definitely does make its own cholesterol, but there are studies showing biochemical pathways that could potentially have cholesterol crossing the blood-brain barrier. And there seems to be evidence that there is, and it sort of breaks down into smaller molecules, crosses the barrier, and then reconstitutes into cholesterol in and out of the brain. So I've certainly seen studies like that suggest that this process is happening and things are crossing in and out. So I don't know how plant sterols affect that in the brain anyway. But in any case, I have no idea if these plant sterols are getting in the MCT oil, and that's what I worry about. And so it's just, there are MCTs in animal fats as well. It's not like you don't get them. But you just don't get the plant sterols as well. So I think that's the main thing with anything plant derived. Even if it's like an MCT oil, it's not omega-6s and linoleic acid and all that sort of stuff. Is that it's 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 got plant sterols. Also, anything at room temperature, anything liquid at room temperature is going to be a bit less stable, and so it can, because these things are going to be unsaturated, so they can break down into other problems, oxidize and things like that. As to animal fats crossing the blood-brain barrier, it depends on the fat. Like I just said, there is a proposed mechanism for cholesterol crossing the blood-brain barrier. Ketones cross the blood-brain barrier, and ketones can reconstitute into fatty acids and be used as the building blocks of materials. Things like DHA, EPA, those get into the brain as well, because the brain's largely made from DHA and EPA. About 20% is made out of DHA. And a lot of it's from cholesterol as well, although a lot of that is manufactured in the brain as well. So because DHA we don't make enough of it, we have to get that in our diet, then obviously if it's being used to make a large portion of our brain, it's required to make a large portion of our brain from our dietary DHA, then it would have to get into the brain. I don't know the exact mechanism. I've also spoken to doctors and researchers such as Dr. Georgia Ede, who talks about how you really don't want to have any linoleic acid in your diet at all, or if you do very little, that's one of the omega-6s that is very common in plant fats, plant oils. And that's not the one we need. We need arachidonic acid, but that comes from meat. Linoleic acid, LA, can be turned into arachidonic acid, but you don't need it to turn into arachidonic acid unless you're just getting no arachidonic acid from your meat. So LA is really unstable. It oxidizes very quickly. It sends off free radicals and can actually get in your brain. Your brain can't really use it as a structural component, doesn't really know what to do with it. So it starts breaking it down for energy, and it's a very inefficient energy, and starts causing a lot of oxidative stress, according to Dr. Ede. And so she was saying that from a mental health point of view, that this stuff was really, really damaging to the brain. And so not to use it. But yeah, so fats can get into the brain. Certainly cholesterol seems to be able to. We know ketones can and reconstitute into fatty acids. And then the omega-3s, because they're used to build the brain. So I don't know all the mechanisms for those though, but that they definitely are some that can. Amber, thank you for the super chat. What do you think about fat, protein when trying to build muscle and strength? Not looking to be a bodybuilder, just really good strength. So I think it's the same for anybody in any other situation. You need enough fat, you need enough protein, right? So you need to have enough of all these essential nutrients. So fat isn't just a calorie source. They're essential fatty acids that you have to have, or you won't be as healthy as you can be, and you could potentially get very sick or die. They're essential fat soluble nutrients that you have to have, or you're not going to be as healthy as you could be, and you could get sick or die. So it's very important to get enough of both. And so you just eat fatty meat until it stops tasting good. You try to get as much fat as your body's asking you for, so that you're not constipated. Your body has a limited capacity to absorb fat, and then you have a spillover mechanism. You have bile, and that allows you to absorb fat. After that, it's very small percentage can actually absorb in your gut without bile. So the rest of it goes out. And so, people say, oh, you don't want to eat too much fat. I mean, that's just a holdover to vilification of fat. I really don't think that you can overeat fat or overabsorb fat physiologically, because you're just not going to absorb it. And if you take a bunch of ox bile, I'm sure, you'll absorb too much fat. So don't do that, right? But when you're talking about just being healthy, and whether that's building muscle or just sitting on your ass, it's just, you want to eat as much fatty meat as your body's asking you for. And so if you do that, your body will tell you how much meat to get, how much fat to get, how much protein to get, and you just go by taste. And so when I'm working out, if I want to put on muscle, I need to make sure I'm eating enough. Normally I just eat once a day, one big steak a day, and that's fine for me. If I'm lifting weights, I'll probably be hungry for that sort of level of a meal twice a day, not once a day. And so that's when I see really good muscle growth. If I'm just still eating the same amount, like I'll get more toned, I'll get more defined, I'll get a bit leaner and more cut, and I'll feel better and I'll get stronger, but I won't put on the mass unless I eat more food. Very simple. You need these atoms to build up the structures in your body and your muscles. So that's it, really. Just eat enough and work out, and you should be fine. So I saw a question here on Instagram from Acai Touchley. I don't know. I hope that's somewhat right, so they know who I'm talking about. It says, "Hi Anthony, what recommendations do you have for someone with gastroparesis?" So this is an important one, because when gastroparesis is when your stomach isn't going to be pushing and moving and opening up and moving things through properly. It's just sort of a bit more static. Paresis, it's paralyzed, right? That's sort of what the name suggests. And so it's not as easy to eat large meals, and it takes longer to digest and move this through. And so what you need to do is don't drink water around mealtime, first and foremost, because you want all that space available for food. And so you eat fatty meat again, and just until you're comfortably full, or until it stops tasting good. It could be that you're going to need to eat multiple times a day just to get enough food in, because of how your stomach's working and not really working properly. And that's it. So just eat fatty meat until you're full or it stops tasting good. And then do that as many times during the day as tastes good to you to meet your biological demands. And then drink water outside of that. I'd probably not drink water for at least, an hour or two before you eat a large meal. Probably 2 hours if you can, and then just space it out. Hopefully, this is something that is transient, and by getting proper nutrition, your body can heal a bit and move this on. But that is how I would deal with it. If not.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys.
Okay, Sunshine Kiss, thank you for the super chat. Nathan Bryan states, we need nitrates, leafy veggies to boost nitric oxide, expand blood vessels, lower BP, how to get nitrates on a carnivore diet. So, okay. That's nice that he says that, but what evidence does he have that we have to get it from leafy greens? Breathe through your nose, and you'll produce more nitric oxide. Go into the sun and get UVA light on your skin, and you'll produce more nitric oxide. And why would it be that for millions of years we've been eating meat, and during the ice ages we had no leafy green vegetables available, really, for most people? And they were just eating meat and animals and things like that, and yet, seemed to have the right amount of nitric oxide for whatever the hell we were doing. And so, well, maybe it wasn't optimal. Well, maybe it wasn't optimal, but it's really hard to get through an ice age when you're not optimal, because you can't just barely make it through an ice age. Right? You either thrive or you die, or you go extinct. There's no two options there. There's extremely harsh conditions, and death is around the corner for everybody at all times. So if you're just sort of barely making it, you're not making it. And so if you were deficient in nitric oxide, it's not going to happen. And think about it this way: when you're up in the Arctic Circle, the Inuit, they're not getting a lot of UV light either. UVA is more penetrative; it can get through the atmosphere a bit better. But the angles of the sun are so oblique that barely any rays are getting there. And this is above the tree line. A lot of these people are above the tree line, but what that is it's a certain latitude that above that the angle of the sun is so oblique that trees cannot grow. You get little shrubs and bushes, and then no plant life can grow, even if it was, even if it were in the summer and not horribly cold and harsh and impossible to grow anyway. So, they're not getting nitric oxide from the sun. Presumably they're breathing through their nose at some point. Most animals breathe through their nose. We seem to be a bunch of mouth breathers, but you shouldn't be. You should breathe through your nose. And who's to say we're not getting this from meat? Who's to say that we're not getting this in the exact right proportions from what we're eating? And also, if you're taking something, with leafy greens, you're getting everything else that comes with leafy greens. So you're getting something from, this is the cherry picking the things that you want from this, and then just leaving the rest, So, leafy greens have toxins, they have defense chemicals. So does the nitric oxide outweigh those defense chemicals? Most green leaves, leafy greens, will kill you, like hemlock, that'll kill you. And so, it is absolutely not, it is not proven by any stretch of the imagination that you have to have leafy green vegetables to get nitric oxide or anything else. And so this is just supposition on his part, or just say, oh, you have to have it, and so maybe this is a good thing. Maybe he's arguing that you should eat these because you get more nitric oxide. Well, do you? I don't know. Has anyone compared that? Has anyone compared, the Inuit only eating their natural diet of meat and, someone who eats a whole bunch of kale? Have they studied that? Have they said, well, yes, these people have more nitric oxide than the other person? And does that matter? Does that make a difference in their health outcomes? So, a lot of these things are assuming a fact that's not in evidence. They're making a statement saying you need nitric oxide, and a best source of that is leafy green vegetables. Well, who says that we are deficient in nitric oxide? Where does it say that? We're deficient in B12 as a people, as a population. You can see that because the reference ranges for B12 are getting lower and lower and lower, because those are averages for the community. So we can see that more and more people are getting deficient, and lowering our testosterone and estrogen levels. Infertility is through the roof. So there's a lot of problems that we're having. Haven't heard it that nitric oxide was the main driver of all that. Testosterone levels are like in the 2000s, in 25-year-old and men in their 20s had half the testosterone levels of the average man in the 70s, right? Or who was in their 60s in 1970s, right? So, testosterone levels have just come right down, and it's worse now. So testosterone levels are in the tank, nutritional levels are in the tank, nutrient levels are in the tank. Infertility is sky high. Non-communicable diseases are the number one killer in the world. At about 80% of issues that doctors treat now are non-communicable diseases, these so-called chronic diseases that didn't exist in any large number before the 20th century. It must have been because of all, lack of nitric oxide, I guess. So Jim Waddell, thank you for the super chat. Can you talk about brown fat? Where is it on the body, and how cold skin activates the burning of it? Thanks. I don't think it's about burning of the brown fat. That's the issue. The brown fat has a lot of mitochondria in it, and that's why it looks brown. Babies have a lot of brown fat, and this is what keeps them warm. So the mitochondria are just generating a lot of energy as heat energy in order to stay warm and keep the baby warm so it doesn't die. And we have brown fat as well. And so when you're going to a cold plunge, or you get cold as hell and your body starts shivering and all that sort of stuff, you'll stimulate your brown fat and the mitochondria in there to start producing heat to keep you alive and keep you from freezing to death. And I'm not an expert in that. I think that there is some interesting research out there, and I've seen some interesting talks by different people. And Ben Bickman talks about the brown fat as well, and how this can actually stimulate more thyroid hormone production. So if you get really cold and you're like shivering, this can cause your thyroid production to ramp up by like 50%. And so obviously that's, again, you're increasing your metabolism and trying to burn more energy so that you stay warm and you survive this cold attack. So that's basically as much as I know about brown fat. But Ben Bickman has a lot of things on it as well, and he's a professor from biochemistry at BYU. So he's got a lot of very interesting things to do with just metabolism and how that works, and this would be part of that. So Caitlin, thank you so much for the super chat. I'm not seeing a question along with it, but maybe down the chain. We'll take a look. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to take a look here. Oh, goodness. Okay. Bloom, thank you very much for the super chat. It's very kind of you. They say parents think that strict carnivore is bad. Father in his late 60s is too skinny, is on statins. Thoughts on that? Effects on the brain. Keto for him if he won't do carnivore? ? How much fat intake? He needs more muscle and healthy body weight. Yeah, look, if it's understandable. I mean, this goes against a lot of people, what people have been saying for the last sort of 50 years. However, it goes exactly in accordance with what doctors and researchers have been saying for thousands and thousands of years. The meat's very important. It's very healthy. It's very critical to have for optimal health and longevity. And we did not have the chronic diseases and Alzheimer's that we've had previously, or that we've had recently. So, oh wow, people just didn't live long enough. Stupid statement. Of course we did. Socrates was 76 when he was terrorizing Athens with his intellect 2,500 years ago or so. When they killed him with a plant, by the way, they made him drink hemlock, and so where was his Alzheimer's? And there was nothing in Plato or anybody's writing. It was just like, oh my God, he was just the oldest guy in the world. I mean, it was just amazing. I mean, we had PhD programs, going back how many hundreds of years? I mean, it's just 1,000 years, and you have, people that were, finishing their education in their late 20s and then going on in their career, and they only lived 10 more years after that. Pretty foolish to waste your time getting a PhD, an advanced degree, and going in academia if you're just going to just like work your ass off and then die 10 years later. I mean, this is stupid. Just look at the ages of the founding fathers of America and when they died. My great grandfather was born in 1875. He died in 1975 at home, fully compos mentis. This is stupid. So Alzheimer's was first described it was a one-off case report from Dr. Alzheimer's that he presented at a conference in 1906. And it was brand new. No one had ever seen this before. That's why he presented this. Wow, look at this weird new case. And then it got coined Alzheimer's dementia. And now it's extremely prevalent, and deaths from Alzheimer's is on the rise, even when adjusting for age. So no, this isn't something that's been going on forever, and we just didn't notice it, or people weren't living long enough to get it. That's foolish. That's someone who's never looked at the statistics, never looked at the modal age. It's the difference between average life expectancy from birth and modal age. Modal age is how what's the average age that people actually die at. How old do people get to if they die of old age? Those are different things than how long people live if they don't get killed by something, and modal age, how long people tend to live when they live to adulthood, and average life expectancy from birth, very different things. Infant mortality was like 3 out of 5, right? So you'd had to have those other two people living a very long time. A lot of people died in wars and famines in early age. And so that basically that 1 in 5 had to live a hell of a lot longer just to pull that average up to 36, 38. I think it was 38. Average life expectancy from birth was 38 in 1850. But if you lived to 10 years old, it was 60. And if you lived to 20, it was longer. And you lived to 30, it was longer, right? So if you got through those kill points in early age, people lived a very long time, right? So no, that's ridiculous. But keto has been shown. Keto is the most studied diet ever. And as Dr. Rob Sivas said in our interview the other day, that'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks. Really interesting guy. And he was saying, I sort of mentioned that, and he was just like, it's the only diet that's been studied, because the other diets are just, have a questionnaire. You get the nurses study, and you give them a questionnaire once a year, and you say, hey, what did you eat in the last year? How the hell would you know that with any accuracy? I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so that's the quality of data on these other diets. Ketogenic diets have randomized controlled trials in large numbers with multiple health outcomes and endpoints by the thousands, right? So this is really the only really well-studied diet. It's certainly the most rigorously studied diet ever. And those studies have shown that a high-fat, meat-based ketogenic diet is a better treatment for Alzheimer's than every medication for Alzheimer's ever trialed. That's what the studies have shown. People are reversing Alzheimer's. And if you're going to reverse it, you can certainly prevent it by going on ketogenic diets, like a carnivore diet. It doesn't even necessarily have to be carnivore, but you just need to eat more meat, more fat. That's what your brain is made out of, like we were talking about before. And you're in ketosis, so your brain is getting ketones. It's running on its optimal fuel source. It's getting ketones in there to reconstruct into fatty acids and rebuild the structures of the brain. And you're getting nutrients like B12 that are integral for myelination of your axons, which will actually give bulk to your brain. And there was a study in 2008 out of Oxford that looked at, part of it was looking at vegans. They followed them for 5 years, looked at them on MRI, and found that their brains shrank by 5% volume. And they thought this was likely due to critically low B12, which was 180, 190. And that's in the normal ranges now for B12, because again, we're just so deficient. Just people are going, oh, plant-based. Everyone's plant-based. People don't realize, oh, you need to go plant-based. You're already plant-based. The average Western diet is plant-based. It's like 70, 80% plants, right? And so, it's just processed plants. There's barely any meat in there. It's not the meat that's doing that. It's all the other plants and garbage that they're putting in it. Seed oils, sugars, all this crap. And, so that's what the problem is. So being on statins, why do we need to be on statins? To lower LDL. Okay, well, is LDL actually a problem? I don't think it is. I think the evidence is very clear that this was just a scapegoat. There's no serious scientist actually independently said, I think cholesterol is a really big problem here. It was the sugar companies who came up with that. And then they found people like Ansel Keys and other professors, 3 from Harvard in particular. One became the head of the USDA, who they could buy off and say, hey, you need to push this. We want to get this out there that cholesterol causes heart disease. And they're like, sure, my integrity is non-existent. I'll be happy to. And so they did that. And we know they did that because we have their contracts. We have the internal memos from the sugar companies saying that they did this. And so, this is a matter of record. It's not a conjecture. It's not up for debate. You don't need a study or a flyer or a survey from nurses once a year to figure that out. We have this documented. This is a known entity. And so cholesterol was never the problem. And they keep shifting the goalposts. They said, oh, total cholesterol, that's the problem. Then you have all these different kinds of cholesterol. And they're like, okay, there's good cholesterol and there's bad cholesterol. And that didn't really work out either. There's 100 different kinds of LDL cholesterol. And okay, well, maybe this one, maybe that one. No, they're all bad. And maybe this. And now they're like, okay, well, that's not really holding up either, because people with higher cholesterol, LDL cholesterol of any description, live longer. I'm like, okay. And there's inverse correlations in some studies with total cholesterol and cardiovascular death, like the Framingham study. That's what their actual data showed, but it was misreported by the AHA, American Heart Association, who was being paid off by the sugar companies to lie and say that it was the opposite, and that higher cholesterol, higher cardiovascular mortality rate. In fact, it was the opposite: lower total cholesterol, higher cardiovascular mortality rate. And so they went, oh, okay, well, that's not, well, now it's ApoB. Oh, ApoB. Oh my God. It's just, they're just banging the same drum. And every time you just show how full of shit they are, they just move to the next thing, move to the next thing. You know, it's just classic misdirection. They're just trying to, it's just red herrings. They're just trying to keep you looking over here. Don't mind the man behind the curtain. Just look over here, look over here. It's nonsense. And the sooner we just get away from this and just say, look, it's bullshit. It was always bullshit. It's bullshit now. We're not talking about it. The sooner this goes away, if we keep just playing this game and they keep saying, well, but it's this, well, but it's this, well, but it's this, we're never going to get anywhere. Right. So we just stop talking to these people about it. The first heart attack in America, first death by heart attack on autopsy in America was in 1912. First case of Alzheimer's was 1906. Right. So where was this before that? Oh, we just didn't notice before that. Bullshit. Doctors were doing thousands of autopsies and dissections over their career. And you had thousands of people doing thousands of autopsies in, you know, any given country, and more in some countries that were bigger. And not a single damn thing in the literature before 1912, except for one obscure reference. Somebody tried to say, it's like, oh, well, you know, there's this reference here in the late 1700s, and they presented at a conference saying that, oh, wow, isn't this weird? We saw this thrombus in the coronary vessel. It's like, isn't that strange? We've never seen that before. And they're like, that's your proof that this was happening all the time, and this is the #1 killer in the world by this one obscure reference 130 years before it's ever seen again. Great job, buddy. And so, you know, you have to deal with less than intelligent people when you talk about these things, because they're just trying to defend an ideology. They're convinced of something, and because they think that they're smart, they're the smartest person that they know, and that they say, oh, well, if I think it, it must be true. And so they're just desperately trying to defend why they are not wrong. So again, 130 years, absolutely zero heart attacks. We're eating more meat and fat in the 1800s than we're in the early 1900s, when this became the #1 killer in America. First heart attack, first death by heart attack, proven on autopsy in 1912. 20 years later, it's the #1 killer in America. You do the math. This is at the time where we're eating the least amount of meat in 200 years, U-shaped curve. Beginning of the 1800s, a lot of meat, slowly coming down. It was a big vegetarian push from the puritanicals and the temperance movement, because they're saying meat's sinful, it makes you lustful and makes you want to have sex. And oh my gosh, how could we possibly want to procreate and advance the human race? And then we get down to the 1920s and 30s. It's at the trough, the lowest point in meat consumption in America for 200 years. That's when it becomes the #1 killer in America. And then it sort of comes up from there. So it's not even associated. There isn't even association with this. So, and the thing you have to realize too, for the people that, you know, saw Peter Attia's talk about how familial hypercholesterolemia proves, and, you know, all these other things prove that LDL is causative. Okay, well, if it were causative, why is it that the people with familial hypercholesterolemia in the 1800s didn't die of heart attacks? It's not what they died of, because there isn't a single case reported in the literature. But if people study population genetics, you'll know that the exact same percentage of genes and alleles that exist in the population stay in that population, regardless of time and expansion of the population as a whole, unless there's a mass extinction event or a mass migration event. So, but if we're talking world population, or at least in America, at least in Europe, where we can look at these things and check these things, unless we're saying that, you know, just people from third world countries are the ones getting heart attacks and they've moved into different countries and now they started getting picked up, very unlikely. But, you know, in these Western countries, you'd have the exact same amount of people having familial hypercholesterolemia now as then, right? And yet no heart attacks. Right. So if high LDL will kill you, and your body just makes the product of its own demise, then, you know, why weren't we seeing that before 1912? Why was there just one obscure reference in the late 1700s? People obviously could see it. These were smart people, and they knew that these people did more dissections than any surgeon alive today. Any of them, like an anatomist, maybe, that spends all day in a lab, but that's what these people were doing. They spent most of their days, they're just in the lab doing dissections, then go out and treat some people, deliver some babies, go back in. That's when Semmelweis actually figured out that there's, microbial infections and things like that, because people were doing dissections on cadavers and doing autopsies, and because that's what people did. And then they'd go and deliver a baby, not wash their hands, go back in and start cutting up dead bodies again. And the infection rate was through the roof on these mothers. So people were always doing dissections. That was a major part of what you did as a doctor in those days, in the 1800s. And, these people figured out the circulatory system hundreds of years ago with no imaging. They figured out how to calculate the number of atoms of gas in a container before you had any way of measuring it with advanced equipment, and it was right. So these people were a hell of a lot smarter than most people alive now, because they had to be. They couldn't rely on technology, and certainly a hell of a lot smarter than anybody who makes the statement that, they just wouldn't have noticed it because they're stupid. Yeah, Da Vinci, who invented a helicopter hundreds of years ago, was a moron. And even though he did thousands of dissections, I'm sure he just wouldn't have noticed a big ass clot in the heart and a big dead chunk of heart muscle. Yeah, just the guy was a moron. You just can't trust these people. So pretty went on a bit of a tangent there. But look, statins, what do we need those for? To lower LDL cholesterol. But why are we lowering LDL cholesterol? It was a con. It was a farce in the first place. I did a video called "The Truth About Cholesterol and Heart Disease," and I just go into the actual studies that completely run counter to that. And so people want to check that out, they can. Hopefully, your dad eats more meat, more fat. It's good for him. Should really think about what he's trying to accomplish with the statins. There may be some application outside of lowering LDL, but that they have, but you don't want to lower LDL. Higher LDL is associated with longevity and lower all-cause mortality in studies with 12 million participants. And total cholesterol was shown in another study with 44,000 out of Sweden last year, that the two most important biomarkers to predict living over 100 was low fasting insulin and high total cholesterol. So why would you want to lower your cholesterol? I don't. I think that's exactly what we're supposed to do. Maybe people that go on a carnivore diet, ketogenic carnivore diets, they get this massive elevation of LDL. Oh my gosh, it's up there with people with familial hypercholesterolemia. Or maybe that's not the aberration. Maybe they're protected against eating crappy food and lowering their LDL to a suboptimal state. Maybe we're supposed to be there. Maybe that's a better place to be. And maybe when you eat what you're designed to eat and your body works the way it's designed to work and your cholesterol does that, maybe you should think and say, hey, maybe that's where it's supposed to be. Maybe that's where we're designed to be biologically. Maybe we've been eating meat in this, and sometimes in exclusion for thousands of years during ice ages in the Arctic Circle, or people like the Inuit who stayed up there. They've been eating that way for millennia, and their cholesterol is likely going to be like that. So maybe that's what we're supposed to be. Maybe that's what's normal. Maybe when you eat a bunch of carbs and sugar and crap and your cholesterol comes down, maybe that's the aberration. Maybe that's bad. And maybe the people with familial hypercholesterolemia are protected from that. And their body says, nope, we're keeping it up here because that's where it's supposed to be. I think that's how you should think about it. You should question these sorts of things. We should not just be spoon-fed answers from people that did not that had their own interests at heart. They're trying to sell something. They're trying to push a product, and they're trying to protect their product because their product is toxic to people. And why are we listening to them? Why are we listening to their advice and the advice of the paid shills that were bought off by them? not great, not great idea. So yeah, keto is certainly better than the alternative. If he's doesn't want to do carnivore, just eat more fat, eat more meat, and you'll put on muscle. Stimulate it. Go for walks. Try to do some exercises and resistance, and should be right. Should be right. And Tomahawk Skipper says chronic kidney failure, is carnivore diet contraindicated? No, absolutely not. In fact, higher protein intake has been shown to improve kidney function, not make it worse. So that's a myth that needs to die as well. And I've seen quite a lot of people with CKD4, CKD5 improve and go away from the potential needs for dialysis and renal transplant. Polycystic kidney disease, in fact, has been shown to be benefited by a ketogenic diet, specifically in a series of papers that have come out recently as well. So no, it is definitely not contraindicated. In fact, like everything else, it's indicated. Any issue that you have, eating a biologically appropriate diet is indicated, and this is certainly one of them. Jay Smith, thank you for the super chat. Male, 68, 5'8", 135 pounds, carnivore for 4 months. My stools were very little. Now they are large and a lot. I can't seem to gain weight. I eat 2 ribeyes, 2 pounds of burger, 6 eggs daily. Am I not absorbing? Potentially. I mean, it's, if you're eating anything else along with them, make sure that you cut those out. Just eat until it stops tasting good. That may be enough for you. It may not be. It definitely seems like a lot, but just keep eating until it stops tasting good. If you think you're having absorption issues, there may be a reason why that you may have to, get checked out by your doctor, infection, other sorts of things, medications. If you're eating anything else besides just meat, eggs, and water, get rid of it. And and just keep eating until it stops tasting good. The gaining weight part, if that's where your body wants you to be, then that's where it wants you to be. You need to stimulate your body to grow in positive ways. So if you want to gain healthy, lean body mass, you need to exercise, you need to do resistance training to failure, and you need to do sprinting, either on the ground or on a stationary bicycle, where you're like an assault bike or something like that, where you crank up the resistance and you just sprint as hard as you can for as long as you can, then you stop. And if you can go longer than a minute, you're not going hard enough. So until you get into very good shape. So that's what you need to do. You need to stimulate your body, and then you need to eat enough for your body to grow and repair. Could be that you've been under eating and malnourished for a long time, and your body's trying to catch up, and you're not gaining weight because your body's just trying to rebuild and repair. But that's the way to find out, is stimulate your body and then eat until it stops tasting good. So that looks like a lot, but is that enough for you? That's the question. And the more stools is a bit strange. I mean, that does sort of suggest you're not absorbing things as much. Things with gristle, you're not going to absorb as much of the gristle. Eggs, you should absorb pretty damn easily. So if you just wanted to eat the hell out of some eggs, and that's what people used to do before there's a whole bunch of anabolic steroids and things like that, they would just take a bunch of eggs. It'd be like 36 eggs a day, would get a mild anabolic effect. Vince Garanda, who's called the Iron Guru, he said that I think it was over 30 eggs a day for most men would be equivalent to a low dose anabolic steroid. So, see how you go with that. Eggs are very easily absorbed. And so if you're not absorbing those, then you probably need to get that checked out, see what the hell's going on. Just see what you can do on that end. And good luck with it. Introspectress, thank you for the super chat. Can carnivore help with SIN1 and HPV 58? Many women online claiming they cleared it naturally with plant-based diets and supplements. Hoping to avoid pure carnivore since January. female 39. Thank you. Well, people can claim whatever the hell they want, but the thing is that if you go into any sort of clean diet, and by that I mean just drop all the processed foods, sugar, alcohol, cakes, and candies, you're going to improve. All of those things are plant-based, right? So they were already plant-based. They just cut out certain plants, and they just happen to throw the baby out with the bathwater and throw out the meat with it. So that's not to say that cutting out meat was the benefit. Cutting out the sugar and the processed crap, that was the benefit. And sin 1, 2, 3 go up and down, all the time, and you have that, and there's a certain percentage of sin 3 that will just resolve and go away, and you won't need any treatment. So it just gets less likely, the more advanced it gets. So it could just be that just happened, and it was a coincidence that they did that, or it could have been that it was helped by cutting out all the processed garbage. On a carnivore diet, you will cut out the processed garbage, and you will improve your mitochondrial function, which is the basis of cellular dysfunction that can precipitate cancer. So HPV, that's going to be in your body forever. It's not going to go away, but your immune system can suppress it. And the damage that it does to the mitochondria that can later precipitate cancer can be mitigated by the improvements that you put on your cellular health and the stimulation of producing more mitochondria and replacing the old, damaged, dirty, dysfunctional mitochondria. And so this is why ketogenic metabolic therapy has been shown in clinical trials to be extremely efficacious in cancers and treating cancers, and presumably the prevention of cancers. And so that would be applicable here as well. And again, what randomized control trials do we have, or clinical trials or interventional trials do we have showing that plant-based diets, whatever that means, because Oreo cookies and heroin are plant-based. McDonald's without the meat patty is plant. Well, McDonald's is plant-based, and without the bun, it's vegan basically, or without the burger, the patty, it's vegan basically. One little patty and this burger, fries, and shake. All of that is plant-based except that one little thin, measly, miserable piece of meat that they have in there. Yeah, it's the meat's fault, I'm sure. So it could potentially help that. There are plenty of people that have reversed that, but there are people that have it's just gone away anyway. So can we say that it's from one thing or the other? I would, just knowing the biochemistry, knowing the biology and the cancer biology, I would say that yes, it would help. But I don't know of any studies that have shown that, but you can look up on PubMed or even Google Scholar. It's a pretty accessible resource. You can just look up, CIN and ketogenic diets. Someone has probably looked at that. There are thousands of studies on ketogenic diets and multiple different health outcomes. So you can check that. You can also go on the Facebook groups, the larger, older Facebook groups like Zero Carb Health and Zeroing In on Health. Those are on Facebook. And you join those. You can go in the search function and you look up exactly that. You look up HPV, you look up SIN 2, 1, 3, whatever. And there will be people that have spoken about it. I mean, there's tens of thousands of people in there from all over the world. And it's been going on for over a decade, well over a decade, 20 years, some of these things. And so, there's a lot of information there, and there's a lot of people's accounts of what they've been able to accomplish. And so that's a really good resource as well. Jake, thank you for the super chat. Dr. Chaffee, can you touch on male pattern baldness? What causes it, and if carnivore diet would help or make it worse? Well, I'm not an expert on that, but I do understand that a lot of it can actually be driven by insulin resistance. You're getting high insulin levels over time. Insulin has a lot of roles to play in the body. It has over 100 different things that it does besides lowering blood sugar, right? So when you eat a bunch of carbs and your blood sugar goes up and your insulin goes up correspondingly, it's lowering the blood sugar, but it's also doing 100 plus other things in your body out of balance. And so it can really mess you up. And so that was something that I've seen, that insulin resistance can be implicated in that sort of thing. And so, a lot of people, when they go carnivore, they get thicker, nicer hair. And, I know a lot of people that did that. And you look at a TED talk that Jordan Peterson did before he was Jordan Peterson. He was he was overweight, and he had very thinning hair. And he's a very different man now, obviously. And that's when he went keto carnivore, and now been carnivore for a long time. And big, thick hair, and very slender. So, that's something that we do see. A lot of people improve not only their hairline, but their hair thickness. When the follicles die, they're dead, but they can be damaged to the point that they don't produce a hair anymore, and can still be alive and still be salvageable. And so that's a potential. So, the other side of things is, is a DHT, dihydrotestosterone, it seems to damage certain hair follicles. Some are resistant, some are not. And so that's sort of that thought of that the male pattern of that is that, you have more dihydrotestosterone, you're going to kill those certain follicles in that certain area. But, a lot of these things happen, they don't happen in a vacuum. There's a lot of other things going on there. So that was something that Dr. Ken Berry said, that it's like, basically, if you start going bald before 40, it's very likely to be due to insulin resistance and prediabetes and things like that, as opposed to just your genetics. So something to think about anyway. A lot of people do find that they get thicker hair. Some people have a fallout phase. And so they were like, oh my God, I'm losing my hair. But you're not. As long as you're eating enough fat and protein, you can trigger a fallout phase, but then it grows back, and it grows back thicker. My brother was he wasn't like going bald, but, it was a bit thinner. And then, after a few months on carnivore, it was like a teenager again. It was like, he had like hair model hair, and it was like just out of nowhere. So, the thing is that this can really, really turn things around for a lot of people, and has, but it's not going to regrow dead hair. Like if those follicles are dead, they're dead. So that's something to think about as well. So you obviously want to be healthy first. That doesn't mean that if you go carnivore, you're not going to go bald. There's other things that are going on there, but that's at least one thing to remember, is that it can actually be from high blood sugar, high insulin sort of things, and that can cause damage.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this replay of my YouTube Live. If you'd like to catch a live version and ask your own questions, please go to the next scheduled one, usually every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All right, see you then, and please enjoy the rest of the Q&A.
Patrice Thomas, thank you so much for the super chat. Not seeing a question, but maybe there's one down the chat, down the line. Aiken, thank you for the super chat. It's a concern. OSCOV wants us to eat even less meat. Who is advising the decision makers? It's bad news for general health. Probably the special interests, such as the food and drug companies, who profit off of us eating their plant-based crap and then getting sick from it. And that's something that Callie Means has shown. He's a whistleblower for, had previously worked in high level aspect of in executive level sort of roles and consultancies in the big food and drug companies. And he said that the food companies know that their food is making us sick, it's destroying our metabolism, our metabolic health, they're making us sicker. And I know, and then they're selling us a whole bunch of pills and things like that to keep us going along. He said, I know they know this because I was in the boardroom meetings with them while they spoke about it. So those are the people holding the strings that control the politicians. And they have all these little dummy corporations and dummy charities that are all about children's health and pushing plant-based vegan crap in the schools, especially in Australia. I mean, there are entire schools that say it's plant-based. You can't send meat in with your child. It's like, not sending my child to your school. That's what's going to happen. So yeah, it's pretty bad, and that's why we have to push back. That's why people in Australia and the US and elsewhere, you need to write your politician. You need to say, hey, this is important to me, and this is bullshit, and we're not going to take this, and we're not going to vote for you if you support this. And that's all there is to it. And if enough people do that, they'll start paying attention, because the first, second, and third priorities that politicians have are reelection, and reelection. That's all they care about. And so if you threaten that reelection, that is when they will listen to you. You will never, ever catch them listening to you otherwise. If it's something that can help them in their career, then they'll back it. There are very few politicians that are actually there trying to help people. Very few. They exist, but it's very few. And the thing is that they're reelectable because people see that, wow, this guy really cares, but or a woman really cares. But all the other ones pretend to be that person. Oh, I really care. Oh, I care. Oh, I care so much. And we'll find out if they care. Write to them and say, listen, this is a big issue for me. This has reversed my health issues. Never been healthier. My mom's out of a nursing home and she's back living at home. And, I'm productive. I'm doing this. I'm able to pay taxes now instead of being a drain on society. This is not only important for me, it's important for the country. You need to support this. You need to support, people eating meat and not driving out the most healthy source of nutrition that has ever existed for humans, or any animals. Even herbivores opportunistically eat other animals when they can, because it's perfect nutrition. They don't have to work for it. It's very easy to turn animal tissue into animal tissue. It's very difficult to turn plant tissue into animal tissue. So, this is basic biology, guys. People that deny that are just denying reality, or they just really don't know. They're just ignorant. They don't understand basic principles in biology. So yeah, you need to talk to your politician and you need to make noise. The more noise we make, the more we're going to be listened to. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. The hippies back in the 60s, they were like, oh, there's all these protests all over the country. It was the same damn people traveling around the country. It's the same people. It wasn't like, now California and now New York and now that. No, it was the same people just going around. They were just traveling around the country protesting. It was the same damn people, but it looked like a much bigger thing than it actually was. So squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So make noise and make your voice heard. Write your politician, phone in, write a letter, write emails. You get emails, they get counted as, this is how serious this is. You call in, it's more serious because you're taking more time. If you write a letter, that tends to be the most heavily weighted form of communication. Like if you actually take time to sit down and put pen to paper, or type something up and send it in, no one does that anymore. So they're going to think that this is actually more. More people are going to worry about that. That's something I heard years ago. I don't know if that's true everywhere, but that's what I've heard. So we just got to make our voices heard and just be like, hey, no, I will not vote for you if you don't protect my interests here. And enough people do that, they'll start paying attention, because they'll start saying, ooh, we really can't get away with this. If it's just a few flies on the wall, who gives a shit? It doesn't matter if they get squashed. So that's what you do. But that's where it's coming from, is the people that profit from our illness. Okay, Dealer Jason, thank you for the super chat. My friend has polycystic kidney disease with 10% kidney function. Considering getting on transplant list, is it safe for her to try carnivore, and could it help fix her issues? Thanks. Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, higher protein diets improve kidney function, and specifically polycystic kidney disease and polycystic ovarian disease syndrome has been shown to improve on ketogenic diets. That's recent research that's come out just within the last year. And so, yes, I think it would help. And it's certainly not going to hurt. It is certainly safe. And I would hope that it would help. Hopefully it will get her kidney function back. I've seen 3 people come off dialysis, which is nuts. That's not supposed to happen. And one gentleman that I'm working with now, he was vegan for a long time, destroyed his kidneys, destroyed his neurological system, almost died. And from years and years and years on a vegan diet, then raw food vegan, then raw fruitarian, and then went, wow, my diet's killing me. And would flip to carnivore right then. His body just massive recovery. He's on dialysis, but he's making more urine. So that's very promising. That doesn't mean that he'll be able to recover enough. There's such a thing as damage done and may not be able to recover enough, but it's improving, which it's not supposed to do. And so that's very promising. And so it's not going to hurt her if she ends up needing a transplant. It was not going to be because she went carnivore. It's going to be in spite of the carnivore. And hopefully, knock on wood, that she doesn't need that. And this can help reverse that. Generally, polycystic kidney disease, it's a one direction event. So, eventually she's going to need some serious overhaul on her kidneys anyway. And, this is at least something that is possible that could help, and hopefully it does, and hopefully she doesn't need transplant as a result. Roman Tuimata, thank you for the super chat. Hey doc, I have a stage 4 DSRCT cancer. Watched your CFreed interview and want to try metabolic therapy. I can't find anyone doing it in New Zealand. Any suggestions? 300 days carnivore. Love your work, doc. There is a neurologist in Hamilton named Dr. Matthew Phillips. He's not an oncologist, and so he specifically works with like GBM cancers. But he does this, and he's publishing works on it as well, specifically in GBM. It might be possible for you to get in touch with him and at least get someone, or maybe he has contacts with someone who in the oncology side of things that are familiar with this and willing to do it. So that's what I would try. But this is something that you can do independently in conjunction with your normal oncologist. You can just do this. And you just keep your GKI down as low as possible. You try to keep it below 2, below 1 if you can, with combinations of carnivore diet and fasting. And so really high fat, 2 to 1 grams of fat to grams of protein. So you want 80% of your calories coming from fat. So like ground beef, you want 65% lean, 35% fat. That's 2 to 1. Right. So really fat, as fatty as you can get, add butter to that. And then you keep your ketones, or your GKI down. So your ketones up, blood sugar down. There's different ways of doing this. Most powerful ways are just eating that way, and then periods of fasting potentially. And you sort of just track that, and you have to have periods of refeeds. You don't want to lose too much weight. If you have extra weight on you, then you have a bit of a cushion, but you don't want to keep losing weight because that can really hurt you as well. Those are the main tenets, and there are a few other caveats. There's sometimes medications and things like that. Help lower your blood sugar more. Metformin is sometimes prescribed for these sorts of things, but those just help chemo and radiation as well. So even if you're going through standard of care, this can make the chemo and radiation more effective and more safe for you, and it doesn't damage your body as much. So really good luck with that. You can try Dr. Phillips, Dr. Matthew Phillips over in Hamilton. But again, he's a neurologist, and so he may not be able to help you, but he may at least know someone in oncology who can. And either way, you can do this yourself. and you just keep your GKI down on average. And it doesn't have to be down all the time under 2. It's just on average over the course of the week, you want that below 2, right? And that's sort of a therapeutic range. You can also look into Paleomedicina over in Hungary, and they may be able to do distance sort of calls with you and help coach you with that. And they have a lot of experience with this. They've been doing this for like 15 years now. So, and they have very good results with their cancer patients. So good luck with that. Hopefully you beat this and you make it through with flying colors and are able to get on the other side and help other people and inspire them to do it as well. Okay, just taking a look at this, guys. I think I've got a ton of questions. So I think we just cap it here. I'm going to try to get through all these if I can, but I'm actually flying out today for a conference in Sydney. So I'll be speaking at a conference this weekend, and so I have to pack and get to the airport. So I sort of have about another half an hour, and I'll try to get through as many of those as I can. So Terry, thank you for the super chat. Hi, I did a double take at the grocery store when I saw a familiar doc on a magazine. I bought it. Congratulations. Well, thank you very much. That's very sweet of you to say that. Yeah, so I was on the cover of Women's Health magazine, and they did a piece on carnivore, which was really cool. And so if people see that, you can support them or get that or not. But yeah, it was sort of fun. It was the first time I've sort of been asked to do something like that, which was nice. It was sort of out of the blue. I didn't. Thankfully, I saw that email. I missed so many emails, but caught that one, and so they sent a photographer over to the house and took some pictures, and then did a phone interview, and they wrote it up. So it was kind of fun. So people can check that out if they're interested. I did a story about it with just the cover, didn't have the inside on it, but yeah, people can check that out if they're interested. Thank you very much, Terry. I appreciate it. Prod LB, thank you for the super chat. Hey Doc, on the rare occasion that you drink alcohol, what do you drink? Thanks for converting me to carnivore and eternal health. Well, you're very welcome. I'm glad you were open-minded enough to give it a try. I mean, once every 2 years or so I might drink, but then I regret it for the rest of the month because I don't get my energy levels back for a month. And so something has to be really worth me not feeling my best for a month. Not that I feel hungover or anything like that. I just don't have good energy, and I don't feel my best. And I like feeling my best. But when I do drink, it would just be like pure spirits, like clear spirits, like vodka. Do like a vodka, soda water. Like that's it. No mixers or anything like that. Just vodka and water. You could potentially do things like whiskey, but they'll have more, impurities in it. That's what gives it the brown colors. Just the little stuff from the oak is soaking in there, and that gets in your body and make you feel a bit worse. But yeah, that's what I drink, and then I regret it for a month. But at least it's cleaner than all the other things. You're not getting all the other things. You're getting the alcohol, and that's bad. We know that that's a known poison. But at least you're not getting all the other unknown poisons, or at least little known poisons that come along with it. So that's what I do. JB, thanks for the super chat. Female 65, lots of burping for 10 minutes after 12 months carnivore, perfectly or particularly when driving, just beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. Was 35 years on antipsychotics, 0 for 6 months. Please help. Well, first of all, congratulations getting off of the antipsychotics. That's amazing. You've been off those for 6 months. That's absolutely fantastic. I don't know what could be causing your burping. I've seen that a couple other times. It generally just goes away if it's been sort of 12 months and you're still doing it. Is it because of the carnivore? Is it because of something else? Don't know. What you can do is you can get a diary, like just a little food journal on and a symptom journal. And so you write down what you've eaten and how much you've eaten, and there's so how much you've eaten, what you've eaten, when you've eaten it, and then whatever symptoms you get after that. It may be connected to certain things. Maybe there's certain foods, certain meats that don't, you eat eggs and you're just burping after you eat eggs or something like that. And you just sort of see if there's any sort of pattern. If it's, you can see that there is no pattern and it's completely unrelated to what you're eating, which is also good information. And then it's just like, all right, well, at least it's not something that I'm doing to myself. It's just something weird. But that's what I would do. Sometimes you can see those patterns and you can see if something's triggering it. So Lena, thank you for the super chat. When you do one meal a day, do you stay full all day? Well, that's the only reason I would do one meal a day, is if that were enough for me to eat that day, or because I didn't have time to, if I was working a lot and didn't have a chance. But I find if I'm eating fatty meat, like ribeyes with butter on it, then I don't need, and I eat until it stops tasting good, then I find that I generally don't need to eat more than once a day if I'm just doing normal stuff. If I'm working out a lot and I'm regularly in the gym, that's twice a day. So I would need more. And if I need more, I need more. And if I need more, I eat more. And so it's that's why I would do it. So I don't fast, and I don't do OMAD. I'm only going to eat once a day. I tend to eat once a day just because that's how much my body needs. And I eat maximally during that one meal. And so when you do that, you're eating more high density food you're eating, you don't need to eat as much or as often. And so it just naturally turns out that I end up eating about once a day. But if I'm hungrier than that because I've been working out or much more active, then I eat more often than that. But it's usually twice a day at most. Marshall Knight, thank you for the super chat. 15 to 30 days. Would a long fast 15 to 30 days help with loose skin? I would get a doctor to monitor weekly. I've lost 120 pounds. I live about 20 minutes from Dr. Ken Berry and was thinking of trying to see him. I don't know if he's seeing patients. He has he's been in practice for like 20 some years, and so he has other patients that he sort of keeps a track of, but he sort of does that just just being nice. So I don't know if he takes on any new patients, but hey buddy, but I don't know for sure that it would. I mean, there are people that have, lost a lot of weight, but done it, with fasting and with, carnivore and things like that, and lost a lot of weight, and their skin shrunk down with them. And, some people, will not get that tightening of the skin. So it's hard to say. I don't know, any sort of hard answers to tell you for that on whether it would or it wouldn't. That's a long fast, and if you don't have cancer, I don't really recommend that for people. I don't really recommend fasting for, people outside of a specific medical condition that it could help. You generally get most of the benefits of fasting just from not eating the wrong things. If you're eating correctly, then you're going to be in the right metabolic state. Your body's going to work correctly as well. So you could try it. That's a long fast though. So you'd want to be careful, and then you have to do like refeeding, slowly, introducing food again, but doing it in a very slow and careful way so you don't get sick. But I can't really say one way or the other. And so if that's something you feel that is important for you to try, I would just, ask you to please be safe with it and be careful. I mean, we're designed to weather famines and to not eat for a while and survive it. But you still need to be careful. So just keep that in mind. And if you were to try fasting, maybe start with shorter duration fast and see how that goes. But just make sure you're healthy. That's the most important thing. There are people that have done much longer fasts than that, and you can do it, but you just need to be careful about it. Okay. So just if like you said, check in with a doctor. Good. That's a good first step, but you need to be very careful on refeeding and making sure that you're getting what you need to I'm not a big expert in fasting because I'm not a big proponent of fasting. So I think you need to look into how to do it safely and make sure you're not hurting yourself. But I don't know if it would help with that either way. So it's up to you on whether you want to try that. AGK, thank you for the super chat. I feel satiated easily with beef. I'm tall and skinny and lose fat when I want to gain weight. Force feeding myself made me grossed out. How long until my body craves more meat for a caloric surplus? So the thing is that you're not going to force that. If you force yourself to eat, you'll just gain fat. You're not going to put on muscle. You might make your muscles look a bit more plump because you've put in glycogen and intramuscular fat called myosteatosis, which is something we see on MRI all the time. And so, and that's just, that's how you get marbling in cattle. You feed them a bunch of carbs and they just put on a bunch of fat, right? But they put on fat in their muscles, and that's how you get that marbling. So human marbling happens from the same thing, and that comes from, and it's called myosteatosis. So it's, you may look a bit bigger, but you're not actually gaining lean muscle mass. So what you need to do is you need to lift weights, and you need to stimulate your body. You need to sprint. You need to work maximally, and then you need to eat until it stops tasting good. And you know where that is. You say you get grossed out. Yeah, that happens. Your body's telling you, stop eating. We don't need this. We don't want it. And so when you work out and when you lift weights, then you'll stimulate your body to grow. And when you do that, your body will need more food. And so you'll be able to eat a lot more. And in fact, you'll want to eat a lot more. And as long as you are, and you get to that point where it stops tasting good, you don't have to be grossed out. You just have to keep eating as long as it tastes good. And you get to a bite that's just bland and not interesting. You go, I don't really want to eat anymore. That's what you need to do. Try that at least twice a day. But the workout is the main thing. So people have different body types and compositions. You're not just going to put on muscle for asking, right? You need to put in the work, and then you need to give your body enough food to put on the muscle after that. And the idea of a caloric surplus, that you have to force your body to take in more calories than it wants, and that's going to make you grow muscles, is bro science idiocy. That's like the way of Stan Efferding and those clowns. He's a clown. I mean, like, the guy just has no freaking clue. But just saying, you just have to force feed yourself all this sort of shit. That's how you put on fat. That's not how you put on muscle. So if you're eating what you're designed to eat and you're stimulating your body, you're going to put on muscle if you give your body enough food. If your body is screaming at you, don't eat, you moron, and you keep eating, you're not going to put on more muscle. Okay, I guess we'll just put on muscle because you asked. No, that's not how it works. That's gonna turn into fat. And if you're eating a whole bunch of carbohydrates, it changes your metabolism. It spikes your insulin. It starts forcing intramuscular fat, intramuscular glycogen, which pulls in water. So you look bigger. Oh, look at me. I'm getting so bulky. And then you just stop doing that. It all goes away. And this is why these big mass monsters like that clown, would bulk up and bulk up and bulk up. And then they'd lose like 80 pounds as they're shredding down for competition. That they did not lose 80 pounds of muscle. They lost 80 pounds of fat and water, or however much they lose. And so, it's if you want to actually put on lean body mass and not have to lose fat afterwards, this is how you do it. So Nicholas Varvarosos, don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry. But thank you for the super chat question. Can you use a carnivore diet to reverse heart conditions as a result of partially blocked arteries? like if you are high risk of heart attack, can you reverse this condition? It's anecdotal at the moment. There are case reports of people doing that. There are people that I've seen that have done that, but we don't have like big studies showing that. I think the closest one would be the lean mass hyperresponders data that came out with Dave Feldman and Nick Norwitz earlier this year, that showed that people on a high-fat, meat-based keto or carnivore diet, and carnivore diet is a keto diet, with this very elevated LDL, but also it's elevated to them, to other people, perfectly fine and normal from my point of view, because that's physiological. It's what your body's supposed to do. Your body's doing it on purpose. Why the hell is that something that's, if it's doing that normally physiologically, why would that be a problem? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Your body just has an inbuilt kill switch like that. That species design would suck, and it would not make it in nature, and they would just be extinct. So maybe that happens somewhere. They're not here anymore. That does not confer a survival advantage. So the person that got that disease gene, they wouldn't do very well, and they certainly wouldn't out-survive the other people in their group. So in any case, the lean mass hyperresponders, they had people on high-fat, meat-based ketogenic diets with what was traditionally considered markedly elevated LDL, and they had no progression in their atherosclerosis. And in fact, the trend was to reverse atherosclerosis. And so we are seeing that. And so we're seeing those in those studies and in that patient cohort. And there are individuals that are coming out saying, hey, I've opened up, one gentleman in my Patreon group, Chip, he had 100% occlusion of his right carotid artery. Now it's patent. It's not completely open, but its blood is passing through it now, right? It's just, severely limited, but it's not 100% occluded. That's a massive improvement. They're not supposed to do that, but it recannulated, right? Like, that's crazy. So, it's, the highway is not open yet, but the rock slide has been cleared enough for cars to go through, so that's a big deal. That is a big, big deal. So I think that eventually the data is going to show, yes, that this will do exactly that. But right now it's very preliminary, but it's not going to make it worse, and it's going to help you in 1,000 other ways as well. So even if it doesn't reverse that, it's still worth doing. And then Dr. Sean O'Mara has been showing that you're opening up vessels in the brain and elsewhere when you're getting rid of visceral fat, and you get fat around the heart as well. And he found that it's the areas of fat on the heart, this fat grows over the heart, and actually it's where that fat externally is touching the carotid arteries, that's where a lot of this plaque buildup develops, from something that he said, if I'm not misremembering. So that's interesting as well. You want to play chess, buddy? Okay. He's going to start knocking on my chess pieces in a second, I'm sure. But I would expect that this is something that will be shown to, yeah, there they go, to be a thing in the future. But again, the data is pretty preliminary at this point. Superfluity of naughtiness. Thank you for the super chat. Do you have any opinion concerning blood type diet? I'm O, and it recommends a lot of meat, but also specific veggies and fruit. Also, any thoughts on food combining principles? So the thing is that I'm type A, so I'm supposed to be a vegan. Apparently, I'm supposed to be an herbivore somehow, and I am not. And neither are you, and neither is any other human being on Earth. This doesn't go by blood type. This goes by species, and so your blood type is a one protein expression, two protein expressions, and on the surface of your red blood cells, and not really anywhere else. So why is it that a protein or two difference on your red blood cells is going to completely overhaul your entire digestive tract and nutritional requirements? Why is it that someone with blood type A all of a sudden doesn't need B12 anymore? Do they just make their own now because of their blood type? No, that's obviously not the case. Lions have different blood types. Parakeets have different blood types. They still have the same diet. So regardless of the genetic idiosyncrasies or the blood types of any animal on earth, they eat according to their species, not according to their blood type. You have people in a tribe, that have different blood types, and then you have them eating what the tribe eats. But all those babies have different blood types, and so just some of them are dying off or something like that. No, that's not how that works. Infant mortality can be high, but it's not because of their blood type and whether or not they're getting enough asparagus. So no, that's really not a thing. The only thing you need to worry about with your genetics is are you human? If you're human, then you should eat what humans eat. You should eat a human-specific diet. Doesn't matter any of the my cat, sorry, any of the genetic differences between lions. You can take every single lion on earth with all their little idiosyncrasies and all their genetic uniqueness, and you can put them all against. You can have them eat gazelle and you have them eat asparagus. You will not find a single lion that does better on asparagus than it does on gazelle. Never. You'll never find that. And the same thing goes with us. We still have an optimal diet. There may be some people that, according to their ethnic background, have an easier time with inappropriate foods, like people that have had their ancestors, had agriculture for 10,000 years versus Native Americans, Native Australians who have only been exposed to this for a couple hundred years. Yeah, there's going to be a disparity there in what they can eat, but they all do best on meat, right? My mom is type O, my dad is type A. We're all AO, right? So what does that mean? Oh, well, if you're type O, then you came from hunter-gatherers. We all came from hunter-gatherers. We all came from hunters. And my mom, who's European American, my dad, who's European American, type O and type A, they're just totally different human beings. And then what the hell are we? I have type A and type O. What the hell does that mean? I just need to eat Caesar salads for the rest of my life. No, it's not the case that matters. It's one protein difference on your red blood cells is not going to make a difference. It matters what our species is. Our species is human, and our species is carnivore. So that's what I would do. How to fix dandruff? More fat, less eggs, no cheese. Yeah, if you're reacting to something, then that can potentially give you dandruff or rashes or other sorts of symptoms. So you just get rid of that. And more fat is good, but also, we're putting on pretty harsh chemicals on our hair and our head that can dry it out and cause problems. Sometimes dandruff is from fungal issues that, may just need to clear, or sometimes we put in products in there that sort of looks flaky and weird. So, but more fat is possible, and then getting rid of things that you might be reacting to is a good idea as well. Oh my goodness, little boy, Jesus. He's just systematically taking every chess piece and knocking them against the wall. And then he'll come back for another chess piece and start knocking it against the wall. I may have to get him out of here. But DC, thanks for the super chat. How can I get my teenage daughter to at least try this for 30 days? I don't actually expect you to answer that. Well, yeah, I mean, you just slowly but surely try to ease her into it, and just show by example, and just show what you're doing, and sort of with teenagers especially, the more pressure you put, the more they're going to go away from it, and thank you. And so, that's a thing too. So if you just lead by example and you just show how good you're feeling, good you're doing, and you just just sort of dropping hints and all these sorts of things. And she sees that, she's going to start to pay attention and hopefully come around on her own. But if she thinks you're the one doing this, you may not go for it. But you never know. It depends on your relationship with her. But I think most kids will come around when they see how well their parents are doing on it and how excited they get about it, and they'll want to copy that, and they want to do that with them. Portland 454, thank you for the super chat. I'm a male in my late 50s. What do you recommend to maintain testosterone and muscle mass in older adults? Exactly the same thing, just going on a carnivore diet. I see this every day in my clinic. People in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s going on a carnivore diet and massively increasing their testosterone. Had a guy in yesterday who nearly doubled his testosterone as a 43-year-old male, and is now making testosterone in the range that you would expect a healthy 25-year-old. Okay, so he's middle-aged, and yet he's not, because middle-aged is not middle-aged. 60 is middle-aged, 70, 80, that's middle-aged. We're supposed to live 120 years. 40 is still in the prime of life. So is 50. And so, you can absolutely build your testosterone by eating just a carnivore diet, because you basically get rid of the barriers in the way of making proper testosterone. And this is without any supplements or medications, by the way. He just doubled his testosterone. And I've had, young men, a young man he's 19 or 20, and his testosterone was low for an 80-year-old. And so it was way below the chart for the reference range, which is already way too low. And he was below that. And so a normal doctor see that, go, oh my God, you've got primary testicular failure, and we need to go on testosterone replacement. You'll never produce testosterone properly. Well, we just put him on a carnivore diet, and in 2 months of not even being 100%, he still had some cheats here and there. He more than doubled his testosterone, and so he went from 140, 150 up to 380, and that was just in a couple months, and it kept going up from there. And then he got really excited about that and started really dialing it in and becoming more serious about it, and it improved more than that as well. Chronic cardio is not going to be your best friend. Stress and poor sleep are testosterone killers, so optimize those. Lift weights to fatigue, sprint to fatigue. Those both will produce more testosterone and growth hormone, and then carnivore diet. And that's how you improve your testosterone at any age. Jeff H., thanks for the super chat. I've been carnivore for 8 months, following no calorie goal aside from eating till I felt full. I feel great, but I'm finding that as I lose weight, I'm eating more per day, not less. Is this common? Yeah, think about it. You have excess fat, and your body's prioritizing that and using that. And that's why it's going away, right? And so by the time you get down to a more stable body fat percentage, you have to eat more in order to maintain your weight and the body fat percentage, because your body wants you at a certain body fat percentage. And so you're going to need more to sort of maintain that. It was literally overnight for me. I was eating 1 big ribeye a day, and that was perfect for me. And then one day I was just like, oh, no, I need more than that. And I was eating 2. And it was 2 from then on of that size. Now I just do much thicker steaks. And so that's enough for me. But I got down to, a low body fat percentage. It was, on calipers. So however accurate those are, it was 5-6% body fat. And that was it. Nope. The body's like, nope, that's where we're staying. And you need to get, to get more food now. And it just doubled overnight. So that is very normal. And it makes sense, isn't it? You're losing weight, you're losing body fat. And then when you get those body fat stores down to where your body says, no, this is the rainy day fund, that's when your appetite will increase. So yeah, that's totally normal. So keep doing it. You're doing it exactly right. Just eat until it, not necessarily until you feel full, but until it stops tasting good, because feeling full is very different, because it's, our hunger signals are very different. You have to relearn that, and it goes by taste. Keep eating fatty meat until it stops tasting good. That's the key. Bishop's Deep Learning, thanks for the super chat. Can you expand on the nutrients found in fat? Also, does fat from different parts of the animals have better nutrients, e.g. Eskimo consider the brain and fat from behind the eyes a delicacy? Creepy. So, yeah, so I mean, the brain obviously has a lot of extremely important nutrients in it as well that are important for your brain. And that's something we've been eating for millions of years. There's evidence we're using pound stones to crack open the skulls of carrion animals and get at the brain. And that was something we could access because we weren't, we were scavenging a lot of the meat that we were eating for a long time before we were able to actually hunt and get sharp stone tools to cut off meat and eat it. But there's quite a lot. I mean, there's more than we understand as well. There's a study that came out that said there was estimated about 51,000 nutrients, potentially essential nutrients in meat that we don't even necessarily have names for all of these things. And so, a lot of those would be in the fats, but you get all the essential fatty acids, cholesterol's really important as well, but DHA, EPA, the other sort of saturated fats and unsaturated fats that are important for your body coming from animal fats, and vitamin D3, vitamin A, vitamin E, K2, all of these things are fat soluble and exist in the fat. And so those are things you need. So those are sort of some of the main ones, but there's so many, and we don't even necessarily have names for all of these things. So it's not even enough to just supplement. Certain things, like, yes, you have a deficiency in D and you're not really getting enough from for whatever reason. Sure. You want to take some, fine, or B12 especially. But, as far as the different sorts of organs, certainly the different organs are going to have a different nutrient content, like the brain is going to have a different nutritional, composition than just your normal fat around your body. Fat behind the eyes, who knows? Potentially, people would prioritize the cheeks and the tongues of animals. Those were always the delicacy, the high fat content, very, very tender, very flavorful. That flavor, that more flavor, is probably indicating more nutrients, and so that's probably why that is. So yeah, there would be a difference, just like the different organs taste very different as well, and yeah, so. Those are some broad strokes anyway, but if you have a certain part of that animal that you really enjoy and that tastes really good to you, your body's probably talking to you and telling you, like, hey, you want some nutrients that this little particular part of the animal has. That's why sometimes liver tastes really good, and then you eat a few of it and you just go, nope, don't want any more. That's probably your body saying, we have enough of those nutrients now. So it's from my sister Rosalind. New T-shirt idea: plants killed Socrates. Actually, I'll probably end up making that. That's a great idea, because they did, the bastards. So yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you for that, Rosalind. Emily, thank you for the super chat. I've been having mild gallbladder pain the last week. I'm 22 on carnivore. I eat 3 meals a day till full, with small snacks in between when hungry. Any suggestions on why and what to try? Well, the first question to ask is it actually your gallbladder that's paining you? That's, you get that sort of in the right upper quadrant, just under the ribs there. If you eat fatty meat and all of a sudden it's squeezing, and it might be on some stones or sludge, and it's pushing on those things, and that's uncomfortable. And so that would happen when you're expressing bile, when you're eating fat. And so first of all, it's important to know if that's actually what's going on or if it's something else. So it's specifically in the right side under the ribs when you eat fat. And so, That's the first question to answer. If it does turn out to be that's what's going on, and you have stones or you have sludge, this can potentially clear if those stones are small enough and they can pass out. If you have stones that are too big and they get stuck, then you will need a procedure. You'll need help to get that stone pulled out of there. You may end up losing your gallbladder. The thing is that bile is stored in the gallbladder and concentrates there because we have to deal with famines and not getting enough food all the time. And so it has to be concentrated so you can get a big amount of fat, at a certain point, or when you're able to eat, as opposed to, eating every single day and all the time, every day, like a grazing animal. And so if you're doing a carnivore diet and you're eating a lot of fat, that's going to start stimulating that, and you're going to start moving that. And if you have those stones in there, it's going to start, it can be a bit uncomfortable. But the reason that you have those in the first place is because you weren't eating enough fat before, because your gallbladder is going to store that bile, and it's going to just sit there and get concentrated, and it's going to form crystals. It's going to form precipitate. That's what hyper-concentrated solutions do at rest, is they turn into crystals, they solidify, right? And so that's what bile sludge is. That's what gallstones are. And so they say, oh, don't eat fat. You're going to get it, it's going to hurt. Okay, well, it might hurt, but what it's doing is clearing those things, and it's dissolving that and not making it more concentrated. If you avoid fat, then it's going to get worse. Those stones are going to get bigger, and you will get an obstruction, and they will get blocked, and you will have to get your gallbladder removed. So the trick is to eat enough fat. Hopefully this clears. If you do it, slowly and carefully, then hopefully it won't be too uncomfortable. But first of all, maybe talk to your doctor and get an ultrasound of the gallbladder, just to see what's going on. Make sure that actually that's what it is. But either way, I would still do the same thing, which is eating high fat carnivore diet, and that will potentially dissolve those or clear those and have you pass those through and get those out of the gallbladder. You could get an obstruction. You may have to end up getting a procedure like an ERCP, where it goes in through the mouth and snakes up in there and pulls that little stone out of the common bile duct, if it's possible to do so. But if it's not possible to do so and they have to take out your gallbladder, that'll be unfortunate. But that's sort of the horses out of the barn at that point anyway, because it was a foregone conclusion at that point. Because if you don't eat fat, then it's only going to get worse, and you're definitely going to get a blockage and obstruction at some point anyway. So might as well just sort it out now. But hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully your body clears it. Kevin Pateg, thank you very much for the super chat. Last 2 weeks or so on carnivore, I'm experiencing really vivid dreams, so vivid that real life experiences through the day seem to continue on in my sleep. Interesting. Is this related to a new way of eating? Potentially. I mean, I heard, I have no idea where this came from. It was just something my mom told me when I was a kid, was that is that if you had higher B vitamins, you get more vivid dreams. And I tried that as a kid because I was like, oh, that's interesting. And you might have lucid dreams where you actually realize you're dreaming in your dream. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm in my dream. I can just do whatever I want in my imagination. Instant superpowers. I think everybody just starts flying and doing other sort of crazy stuff. When I did this, that was always the thing. I basically turned into a flying Jedi. I would just instantly start flying and then shooting like lightning bolts out of my hands, like the Emperor Palpatine, and like materialize a massive diamond and like a chick there, because I was a teenage boy. But that could very well be because of B vitamins. And you're actually getting proper B vitamins now. So I don't know, but that's something that I was told as a kid anyway. And when I took B vitamins before I would go to sleep, I would always have very vivid dreams and even lucid dreams, especially when I was tuning up for it. Cold Brew, thank you for the super chat. I'm tired of ground beef. Steaks are expensive. Can I eat chicken thighs and eggs? Yes, you can. I heard that beef is has more nutrients and is the best meat to eat. Do you need to take any carnivore supplements? Generally not. You could probably live your whole life on eggs. Pasture raised eggs, though. I mean, those pasture raised eggs have far more nutrients in it than the normal corn fed eggs that we're going to get, corn and soy fed eggs. So that's what you want. You want to get the highest quality chickens and eggs and things like that you can. And so you're getting pasture raised eggs. If you raise your own chickens and you get your own eggs, that's going to be even better. Just let them eat bugs and worms and things like that and forage around. That's where that's where they get nutrition. That's where you're going to get the nutrition as by proxy. And so but yeah, you can absolutely do that. I've spoken to people who have met people that have lived years and years. There's a story of a guy who was traveling in Germany. He saw this guy and he was in his 80s, but he just got done cycling, and he was just, you could tell he was a bit older, but he had the physique of like someone in their 30s. And so he sort of just asked him, got talking to him, and he just said, that he had been in World War II, and he was, obviously he was German, so he was fighting for the Germans. And he got injured early on in the war, so he was sent back home. Inflation was just out of control, and so he just, as soon as he was able to, with his, the money he had from the army, he just bought a little place up in the hills somewhere and bought some chickens because he couldn't really afford food, and so he just lived on the chickens. He would never eat the chickens just because they fed him, and so they lived together nicely. And then he got more chickens and they laid eggs, and they had more chickens, and they laid eggs, and pretty soon he was able to eat very comfortably and feed his neighbors and give them eggs and all that sort of stuff. And he said that he just kept doing that throughout the war, and then he just felt so good that he just never stopped. And so he'd been eating just eggs, his own pasture raised eggs, for 60, 70 years at that point, or 60 years at that point, I'd say. And was doing great, was really healthy. So you could do it. You just need the higher nutrition pasture raised eggs. And tons of folate in pasture raised eggs, tons of everything. These are the precursors for life, is all the nutrients that are in an egg. And you can always just check, if you don't think or if you want to know how much nutrients and vitamins and minerals you have, you just check. And if you're low on something, you can supplement that or make sure you're getting higher quality eggs. Chilled Monkey Brains, thank you for the super chat. So I've heard you mention an association between diet and autism spectrum disorder. Can you elaborate? Are there any studies I can take a look at? Thanks. Yeah, I put a number of studies in the videos that I've done on autism. And yeah, there's a lot of associations, and association isn't causation, but at least it's interesting. There's one that had preconception diet, so women that were eating a lot more meat and red meat preconception, so before they got pregnant, had much lower rates of children with autism. Presumably, they're not just going to stop doing that during pregnancy and rearing of the child. So who knows about that? But they specifically were talking about preconception. Women that have higher LDL cholesterol and total cholesterol during pregnancy, lower rates of children with autism. That eats higher saturated fat diets during pregnancy, lower rates of kids with autism. Women who breastfeed instead of bottle feed, lower rates of kids with autism. People that now this one, I was looking specifically for formula fed versus breastfed, and I couldn't find a study on that. But the bottle fed was the closest one I could get. I was wondering, is sugar going to be a precipitative factor for autism? Because formulas have there's a buttload of sugar added to it, which is not good, I think, and a bunch of seed oils and horrible, nasty crap like that. So this didn't differentiate between people that just express milk and put that in a bottle and use that as well as formula. But most people who bottle feed instead of breastfeed are using formula. Because usually people that breast pump, they're also breastfeeding, and then they pump as well, and they're sometimes having a bottle. The ones that exclusively bottle feed, they're not breastfeeding at all, and they're not pumping at all. And so they're not making milk at all. And so it's much more likely that those people were using formula. And so that group anyway had higher rates of kids with autism. And then out of university, or the Texas A&M University in America, they found that vegans and vegetarians were having higher rates of kids with autism. And that is in the literature as well, as higher rates of autism in vegan and vegetarian families that eat less meat or no meat. And Texas A&M found that one of those was seemed to be causative because of a carnitine deficiency. And so people that don't have enough carnitine, their brains don't develop properly, their neurons can't develop properly. And this is important for mitochondrial function and health as well. And so it's they found that, it is the case that carnitine is actually an essential nutrient for a lot of people. Fully 30% of people don't make enough carnitine or any carnitine at all. And so it's non-essential. It doesn't matter. Bullshit. It matters for at least 30% of people, and more in your diet is helpful as well. And so they found that people, vegans and vegetarians, they weren't getting enough carnitine for their kids. And if their kids weren't making enough carnitine, if they were one of these fully 1/3 of humanity that doesn't make enough carnitine, that they were getting these types of autism where the brain wasn't developing properly. And then you have studies of all throughout the literature showing that ketogenic diets, in particular, getting rid of carbs and sugar, changes the brain energy and changes the mitochondrial function and patterns in the brain of autistic children and adults, and their brain starts working better. And so there are entire treatment groups. There are doctors and facilities that treat autism with ketogenic diets. Professor Chris Palmer from Harvard, is a professor of psychiatry at Harvard, wrote about this in his book Brain Energy, and we talked about it on our interview that I did with him. If you will look for that on our channel, we talked a lot about autism, and he was saying that going on ketogenic diets is really important for autistic kids, especially because you have a chance to reverse a lot of the misdevelopment of the brain and develop properly and more healthily than as a kid when your brain is still developing. And so that's when you need to get this. But even as adults, I've spoken to many adults with autism who have significantly improved their lives and their symptoms. One guy, Jonathan Griffiths, who we've done a couple podcasts together, really nice guy. He's a British guy who is a bodybuilder, and we, the subject of autism came up, and he said that he had autism. You would never have guessed this by speaking to him, by the rest of the conversation. I had no idea that he was on the spectrum, but he said that a year ago, before he was doing carnivore, he would not have been able to have the conversation we were having right now, which is amazing. And I've had people come to me and say, hey, come up to a conference. There's a lady I did a podcast with, Allie. She goes by Allie Carnivore. We did a podcast together on autism and her story with her kid. I'd spoken to her online before, and she came up to me at KetoCon 2 years ago, and she said, this is my son, these are my kids, and said all the hellos, and she said he's a nonverbal autistic, and I was a bit confused. I was like, I'm pretty sure I just heard him talk, and then she said when eating carbohydrates, and so when he doesn't eat carbohydrates, he is completely functional, and then he'll go over to his grandparents' house, and they'll try to buy his love with candies and cookies and things like that, and he'll come back and he won't speak for 4 days. Right. And so that just shuts down his brain. His brain needs ketones. And so then it goes back into ketosis, and all of a sudden his brain works again. And so they got him on carnivore for probably close to 2 years now. And 6 months ago or so, she told me that she messaged me and said that he tested into the gifted program at school. So he went from being a nonverbal autistic, and that could have been the rest of his life, to now being in the gifted program and actually being able to be functional and a productive, successful adult. I mean, that's an amazing amazing difference you can do for somebody. And it's just from not eating carbohydrates. And I get comments all the time. If people here are suffering with autism or have a family member suffering with autism, please put that in the comments, put that in the chat, and definitely in the comments because they're more permanent. Tell your story. What's your experience with this? Because it's important for people to get this out there and know it, because if they have a family member and they're just kind of like, well, it's hard to change people's diets, especially when they're autistic. It's difficult, but oh my God, it's worth it. And so the more this gets out there and more people realize just how worth it this is, you can completely change this person's course of their entire life for the better. That it's so important. And however the hell you can do it, by hook or crook, it's so important to do. I've spoken to adults that are autistic and suffer with autism their whole life, and said that that when they eat carbs, they turn nonverbal and they can't speak for days and they just shut off. One person was actually really sad. They were talking about autism. I had a short talking about autism. And you look at the comments. It's a recent short. So go into my shorts and go to the one on autism. Look at the comments. There's a lot of comments on there. People with autism, the family member with autism, and these massive improvements. One was kind of sad, but they said, imagine being in a world of your own design in your own head for years, for your whole life, and then one day deciding to eat meat. And then all of a sudden coming out of it, and now you're in a completely different world. And you realize the world that you were in before wasn't the real world. But now you have no skills. You have no family connection. You have no friend connections. You have no this, you have no that. And you're in this new world that's now completely foreign to you. And you don't have any skills and life skills and things like that. I don't have to wonder what that's like, because that's my experience. So that's what they were describing, and you're going in the chat and people were talking about this, and other people had that experience too, was that they had autism and their brain was not working right. And then all of a sudden they started eating meat and it started getting better as an adult, getting healthier and healthier and healthier. And all of a sudden they're there and they know what's going on now, and their brain's working to an extent that they see the world around them for what it is, and they realize, shit, I'm 40 years old and I don't have any job skills or life skills. And that's hard. So the earlier you do this, the better. However, there are a lot, like Jonathan, that are adults that have, had autism and completely changed it. And now, he's just living a normal, functional, productive life, which is great. So it makes a massive difference. It makes a massive, massive, massive difference. So anybody with that has this sort of condition or has a family member with it, please give this a try. This is something that can completely change your life, and it can change their life. And it's something that is probably the most important thing that anyone with autism can do. Okay, I'm going to do just a couple more questions, guys. Okay, I'm just going to, I actually sort of want to just end it on that note, because that was sort of a good note to end it on. And I've sort of gone about half hour over where I thought I was. Thank you very much, everyone. I think I probably do just want to leave it there on that note about autism, because I think that's a really important message. Please, if anybody has or knows someone that suffers from autism, please do try to get resources to them or their parents, or if you're the parent, think about this seriously, and look at the research and see if you can do it for your child or yourself, because it makes a massive difference. And the sooner you do it, the sooner that they can recover, and the sooner that they can rebuild their life and just be a happy, healthy, wonderful person that doesn't have to get that doesn't have to suffer with their brain not working the way it's supposed to. So yeah, we'll end it there. Thank you all very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved the questions. They're always interesting and always great. And it's always interesting to see what the questions are going to be, and it's always, you'd think that it would be pretty much the same questions of just eat meat, do this, it's like, but it's not. I mean, there's similar one, cholesterol gets brought up a lot, but that's understandable. But it's always great questions, and I really appreciate you guys coming on. Hope you like this. If you do, please hit like and think about subscribing if you haven't, and leave a comment below and let YouTube and other people know what you think. And especially if you or someone suffers with autism, please do let us know what your experiences have been with yourself or with your family member or loved one or friend, just because, my God, if we can just reverse this and nothing else, I think that would be a huge, huge impact and benefit to humanity. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Really great to see you. I'll be doing another premiere on Sunday, US time, Monday morning, Perth time, as usual. And then I'm thinking of adding in a second YouTube live thing a week, just because of, I don't always have as much time to get through all the questions. So I might add in a second one during the week, possibly on Tuesdays in the US, Wednesday mornings in Perth. So that would be Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday, depending on what part of the world you're in. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. And have a great weekend.
Hey everyone, if you need a little extra help getting started on a carnivore diet and my online resources that I have for free aren't enough for you, you can go to www.howtocarnivore.com and sign up for a 30-day carnivore challenge, where you'll have online resources, group support, weekly Zoom meetings, as well as the ability to chat live with myself, Simon Lewis, and the others in the challenge who can help you and support you and give you extra advice and help you along the way. So if that sounds like something that would be beneficial to you, then please go to howtocarnivore.com and sign up. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you there.